How to Become an Excellent Communicator Introduction. Welcome to How to Become an Excellent Communicator, proudly produced by Chris Aniche, an award-winning and world-class certified public speaking coach. In How to Become an Excellent Communicator, this book will provide you with strategies, practical exercises, and transformative insights to overcome fear, speak confidently, and become an excellent communicator when you listen to the audiobook and undertake the exercises in this book. Chapter 1. Understanding the Foundations of Communication. Welcome to this comprehensive guide to becoming an excellent communicator. This first chapter explores the fundamental elements that create the foundation for effective communication. What makes communication effective? Communication is far more than just speaking or writing. It's a complex exchange that involves sending clear messages and ensuring they're properly received and understood. Effective communication is essential for success in all areas of life, breeding confidence and optimism that enable you to accomplish your goals. Before diving into techniques, it's crucial to understand that communication serves multiple purposes: conveying information, persuading others, building relationships, expressing emotions, coordinating actions, identifying your objectives. Every communication should begin with clarity about what you hope to accomplish. Ask yourself, what is my goal in this interaction? What specific response or action am I seeking? Understanding your objectives shapes everything from your word choice to your tone. For instance, if you're explaining a complex concept, your objective is clarity. If you're requesting resources, your objective is persuasion. If you're providing feedback, your objective is improvement. Know your audience. Effective communicators always tailor their message to their audience. This means considering their knowledge level on the topic, their interests and priorities, their communication preferences, their relationship to you, their potential objections or concerns. Customizing your approach to your audience's needs naturally increases engagement and builds trust. For example, explaining a technical concept to a colleague with similar expertise requires a different language than presenting the same concept to someone with no background knowledge. Chris's story: from stuttering to stellar communication. When Chris Aniche was a child in Nigeria, his speech impediment was so pronounced that classmates would mock him whenever he tried to speak. During a class presentation, his stutter became so severe that he froze completely, unable to continue. His teacher's dismissive comment about his lack of future ambition that day could have defined his life. Instead, Chris's mother encouraged him to practice reading aloud daily, gradually building his confidence through consistent, structured practice. She would sit patiently as he read, never showing frustration when he stumbled. This early experience taught Chris the foundational principle that communication skills can be developed through deliberate practice and supportive feedback, principles that would later form the basis of his fearless public speaking system. Exercise: the Purposeful Communication Grid. This exercise, developed by Chris, helps clarify your communication objectives and tailor your approach accordingly. Draw a 3x3 grid on paper. Label the rows: information, action, and connection. Label the columns: what I need, what they need, and potential barriers before an important conversation. Fill in each cell considering: what information do you need to convey or gain? What action are you hoping will result? What emotional connection do you want to establish? What does your audience need in each category? What might prevent success in each area? Use this completed grid to plan your communication strategy. Sarah, a marketing professional with severe anxiety about client presentations, used this exercise before a major pitch. By clearly identifying her objectives and anticipating client needs, she was able to focus on delivering value rather than dwelling on her fears. The result was her most successful presentation to date, leading to a six-figure contract. The communication cycle. Understand that communication is cyclical, not linear. It involves forming your message, encoding, transmitting your message through a channel, the recipient receiving your message, decoding, the recipient providing feedback, addressing barriers that might distort your message, setting the foundation for success. Establish these practices to strengthen your communication foundation. Prepare before important conversations. Choose appropriate settings for different communications. Eliminate distractions when communicating. Be present and focused during interactions. Review past communications to identify patterns and opportunities for improvement. Exercise: talk pointlessly. This unusual but effective exercise, which Chris often uses in his workshops, focuses on delivery rather than content. Find a short passage in a language you don't speak, or create a nonsense paragraph. Practice reading it aloud with conviction, varying your tone, pace, and emphasis. Focus on your delivery, maintaining eye contact, using gestures, and projecting confidence. Record yourself and review your performance. Research shows that 38% of your communication impact comes from tone and 55% from nonverbal cues, with only 7% from the actual words. This exercise helps you develop the confidence to speak expressively, even when nervous about content. Mark, an engineer who struggled with technical presentations, practiced this exercise daily for 2 weeks. Though initially skeptical, he discovered that focusing on delivery rather than technical perfection dramatically improved his presentation skills, leading to a promotion to team lead. Practical foundation exercise. Before your next important conversation, take 5 minutes to write down your specific objective, 3 key points you want to convey, what you know about your audience's needs, potential obstacles to understanding, how you'll confirm your message was received correctly. By building this strong foundation, you create the conditions for clear, purposeful communication that achieves your objectives and respects your audience's needs. In our next chapter, we'll explore the critical skill of active listening, which forms the bedrock of all meaningful exchanges. Chapter 2. Mastering the Art of Active Listening. Welcome to Chapter 2, where we'll explore what might be the most underrated yet crucial communication skill: active listening. Contrary to popular belief, communication isn't primarily about what you say, it's about how well you listen. Why listening comes first. Effective communication begins with listening, not speaking. Most people hear only about half of what others say during conversations. This creates a massive gap in understanding that leads to misunderstandings, conflicts, and missed opportunities. True listening involves more than waiting for your turn to speak. As communication experts emphasize, if you want people to listen to you, you need to listen to them. When everyone is actively involved in listening, communication effectiveness multiplies. The principles of active listening. Active listening is a deliberate practice that involves giving your full, undivided attention to the speaker, clearing your mind of distractions, judgments, and counterarguments, focusing on understanding the complete message, not just the words, showing engagement through appropriate nonverbal cues, confirming understanding before responding. When you listen actively, you demonstrate respect and build trust, creating an environment where honest communication can flourish. Techniques for becoming an active listener. To transform from a passive to an active listener, implement these proven techniques. Approach each conversation with the goal to learn something new. Enter conversations with genuine curiosity, regardless of the other person's position or status. Think of everyone as someone who can teach you something valuable. Stop talking and eliminate distractions. Silence your internal dialogue about what you'll say next. Put away electronic devices, turn away from screens, and minimize environmental distractions. Your attention is your most valuable gift to the speaker. Focus on the complete message. Listen not just for content but for emotion, context, and underlying meaning. Pay attention to the specific words chosen, tone of voice and emphasis, pace of speech, pauses and hesitations, emotional undertones. Ask clarifying questions when something isn't clear. Wait for an appropriate moment to ask open, non-leading questions. This shows engagement and ensures accurate understanding. Useful phrases include, "Could you tell me more about? What did you mean when you said? How did you reach that conclusion? Can you help me understand?" Rephrase what you've heard. One of the most powerful active listening techniques is paraphrasing the speaker's message in your own words. This confirms your understanding and shows you're truly engaged. For example, "So what I'm hearing is, let me make sure I understand correctly. It sounds like you're saying." Exercise. The 3-second pause. This simple but powerful exercise from Chris Anish's workshops helps develop discipline in listening. In your next 3 conversations, commit to waiting a full 3 seconds after the other person stops speaking before you respond. During those 3 seconds, mentally process what you've heard. Ask yourself, did I fully understand their point? Before speaking. If not, ask a clarifying question instead of giving your response. David, a sales manager known for interrupting clients, practiced this technique for 2 weeks. His sales increased by 27% during that period as clients felt truly heard and understood, leading to stronger relationships and better understanding of client needs. The role of questions in active listening. Questions are the tools that transform passive hearing into active listening. They serve multiple purposes: clarifying understanding when messages are unclear. Well-timed questions prevent misunderstandings before they take root. Guiding the conversation. Open-ended questions open dialogue pathways and signal your interest in deeper understanding. Questions like, "What led you to that conclusion?" invite elaboration rather than simple yes/no responses. Demonstrating engagement. Thoughtful questions show you're mentally processing what's being shared, not just waiting for your turn to talk. Drilling down to specifics. Focused questions help move from general concepts to actionable details. For example, how would you implement that idea specifically? Exercise. Flip-flop. This engaging exercise from Chris's workshop helps develop listening flexibility and perspective taking. One person speaks enthusiastically in favor of a topic when the facilitator signals, by clicking fingers or another cue. The speaker must immediately switch to speaking against the topic. This continues with several switches back and forth. The speaker must listen carefully to themselves to maintain coherence while changing perspectives. This exercise helps speakers become more flexible in their thinking and improves their ability to understand multiple perspectives, a critical component of active listening. Jennifer, a human resources director with strong political opinions, found this exercise transformative. By practicing arguing both sides of controversial workplace policies, she developed greater empathy for diverse viewpoints, dramatically improving her conflict resolution abilities. Overcoming listening barriers. Even with the best intentions, several barriers can impede effective listening. Preconceptions and biases enter conversations with an open mind rather than preconceived judgments about what the person will say. Environmental distractions. Choose quiet, comfortable settings for important conversations whenever possible. Internal distractions. Practice mindfulness to notice when your attention drifts and gently bring it back to the speaker. The urge to interrupt. Resist finishing others' sentences or jumping in with solutions before they've finished explaining. Emotional triggers. Recognize when your emotional reactions are interfering with your ability to listen objectively. Success story. The courtroom transformation. One of Chris's clients, a barrister named James, was known for his aggressive questioning style that often alienated witnesses and juries. After working with Chris on active listening techniques, James transformed his approach. Instead of planning his next question while witnesses were speaking, he truly listened to their answers, which allowed him to ask more relevant follow-up questions. He also began acknowledging witnesses' emotions before diving into factual questions. Within 3 months, his case success rate improved dramatically, and a judge who had previously reprimanded him for his confrontational style commented positively on his more effective approach. Exercise. Active listening partners. This paired exercise develops focused listening skills. Partners take turns speaking for 2 minutes on a meaningful topic. The listener may not interrupt or speak during the 2 minutes after the speaker finishes. The listener must summarize what they heard before responding. The speaker confirms whether the summary was accurate. Partners switch roles and repeat. This simple but challenging exercise reveals how rarely we truly listen without planning our response. Regular practice dramatically improves listening accuracy. Practical listening exercise. In your next 3 conversations, challenge yourself to count to 3 silently before responding. Ask at least 2 clarifying questions. Paraphrase what you've heard before sharing your thoughts. Notice how the quality of the conversation changes. Remember, listening is a skill that improves with conscious practice. By mastering active listening, you create the foundation for all other communication skills to build upon. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to craft clear, concise, and compelling messages once you've fully understood what others are communicating. Chapter 3, Verbal Communication Excellence. Welcome to Chapter 3, where we'll explore the art of verbal communication, how to express yourself clearly, concisely, and effectively once you've established strong listening skills. The power of clarity and concision. The most effective communicators understand that less is often more. As communication experts emphasize, don't use 10 words when one will do. Clear, concise communication respects your audience's time and cognitive capacity. Remember that while you've had time to organize your thoughts, your audience is processing your message for the first time. This requires discipline in how you structure and deliver your message. Structuring your message before speaking, especially in important situations, take time to organize your thoughts. Start with your core message. Lead with your most important point rather than building up to it gradually. This ensures your key message isn't lost if attention wanes. Use the rule of 3. Humans naturally remember information in groups of 3. Structure your supporting points accordingly. Create a logical flow. Arrange your points in a sequence that guides your listener through your thinking process, chronologically from problem to solution, or from general to specific. Bookend with emphasis. People remember what they hear first and last most clearly. Place your most important points at the beginning and end of your message. Exercise. The 6-word story challenge. This creative exercise from Chris's workshops develops verbal agility and structure. 6. Collect 6 random words from audience members, or select them yourself. Craft a coherent, engaging story that incorporates all 6 words in order. Focus on making smooth transitions between the words. Aim for a clear beginning, middle, and end. Despite the constraints, this exercise forces you to think quickly while maintaining structure, simulating the challenge of staying on track during presentations when unexpected elements arise. Catherine, a financial advisor who struggled with client presentations, practiced this exercise weekly. She found that it dramatically improved her ability to incorporate client questions into her presentations without losing her train of thought, resulting in more dynamic and responsive client meetings. Word choice matters. The specific words you choose dramatically impact how your message is received. Use simple, precise language. Choose familiar words over jargon or complex terminology unless you're certain your audience shares your vocabulary. Precision eliminates ambiguity. Choose active over passive voice. Compare, the team completed the project, active, with the project was completed by the team, passive. Active voice creates clarity and accountability. Be specific rather than general. Instead of, we need to improve communication, say, we need to hold weekly team huddles and document decisions in our shared workspace. Eliminate filler words and phrases. Words like basically, actually, sort of, and dilute your message and signal uncertainty. Success story. From technical expert to effective communicator. Raj, a brilliant software engineer with a PhD in computer science, struggled to communicate with non-technical team members. Despite his expertise, his ideas were often overlooked because colleagues couldn't understand his jargon-filled explanations. After attending Chris's workshop, Raj learned to translate complex technical concepts into accessible language by using analogies and everyday examples. He practiced explaining technical concepts to his 8-year-old nephew until the child could understand and repeat the main ideas. Within 3 months, Raj's communication transformation led to his promotion to team lead, where his newly developed ability to communicate complex ideas clearly became his most valued skill. Verbal delivery techniques. How you say something can be as important as what you say. Pace and pauses vary your speaking pace for emphasis and use strategic pauses to highlight important points or allow information to sink in. Volume and projection. Adjust your volume to the setting and distance from listeners. Speaking slightly louder than your normal volume often conveys confidence. Tone and inflection. Your vocal tone conveys emotion and emphasis. Practice varying your tone to match your message. Authoritative for important directives, warmer for building rapport. Articulation and enunciation. Clear pronunciation ensures your words aren't misheard. Pay special attention to technical terms or names. Exercise. Tongue twisters. This classic exercise improves articulation and diction. 3. Practice repeating challenging tongue twisters with increasing speed. Focus on clear pronunciation of each syllable. Start slowly and gradually increase your pace. Record yourself to identify problem areas. Try these examples. She sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Unique New York. Unique New York. You need unique New York. Chris recommends practicing tongue twisters for 5 minutes daily, especially before important presentations, to warm up your articulation muscles. Michael, a soft-spoken accountant preparing for his first major conference presentation, practiced tongue twisters daily for a month. His improved articulation helped him project his voice more effectively without straining, and audience feedback praised his clear delivery of complex financial information. Adapting to different communication contexts. Skilled communicators adjust their verbal approach based on the context. One-on-one conversations use more personalized language, ask frequent questions, and allow back-and-forth dialogue. Small group discussions balance speaking time, acknowledge others' contributions, and build upon shared ideas. Presentations to larger audiences increase structure, use more examples and repetition, and incorporate rhetorical techniques to maintain engagement. Virtual communication. Speak more deliberately, use clearer transitions between points, and check for understanding more frequently than in person. Exercise. Impromptu speaking. The ability to speak effectively without preparation is invaluable. This exercise develops this skill. Create a list of diverse topics, or have others suggest them. Randomly select a topic and speak on it for 1 to 2 minutes without preparation. Focus on quickly organizing your thoughts into a clear structure. Gradually increase the speaking time as your confidence grows. Chris emphasizes that impromptu speaking is the basic, go-to exercise of all speakers clubs because it needs little preparation and can be used as a foundation to address all speaking issues. Amanda, a marketing executive who froze when asked unexpected questions in meetings, practiced impromptu speaking daily by selecting random objects in her home and speaking about them for 1 minute. After 6 weeks, she successfully handled a surprise request to present to the executive team with only 5 minutes' notice, a situation that would have previously caused panic. Assertive communication techniques. Assertiveness allows you to express your thoughts confidently while respecting others. Use I statements. Frame your message from your perspective rather than making accusations. For example, I feel concerned when deadlines are missed, rather than, you always miss deadlines. State needs and expectations clearly. Be specific about what you're requesting rather than hoping others will infer your needs. Offer solutions, not just problems when raising issues. Suggest potential resolutions to move the conversation forward constructively. Balance firmness with respect. Maintain your position without dismissing others' perspectives or becoming aggressive. Practical verbal exercise. Record yourself explaining an important concept, then review the recording to identify filler words or phrases to eliminate points where you could be more concise, areas where your tone or emphasis could better support your message. Opportunities to improve structure and clarity. By mastering these verbal communication techniques, you'll ensure your message is received as intended. In the next chapter, we'll explore how your nonverbal communication either reinforces or undermines your spoken words. Chapter 4. The Power of Nonverbal Communication. Welcome to Chapter 4, where we explore how your body speaks volumes even when your voice is silent. Nonverbal communication often conveys more meaning than your words themselves, making it essential to master. The primacy of nonverbal cues. Research consistently shows that nonverbal elements carry the majority of a message's emotional meaning. Your body language can either reinforce your words or completely contradict them. As communication experts note, without realizing it, your body language can send a stronger message than your words. Nonverbal communication includes everything from facial expressions and eye contact to posture, gestures, and even how you dress. The goal is to ensure these elements align with and support your verbal message. Body language fundamentals. Your physical presence communicates before you say a word. Posture and stance. Standing or sitting upright with shoulders back conveys confidence and engagement. Conversely, slumped shoulders or a hunched position suggests disinterest or lack of confidence. Position yourself at an appropriate distance, close enough to show engagement but not so close as to invade personal space. Hand gestures. Natural, open hand movements emphasize points and add visual dimension to your message. Keep gestures within the gesture box, the area from your waist to your shoulders, for professional settings. Be aware that crossed arms can signal defensiveness or closed-mindedness. Head position. A slight tilt conveys attentiveness and interest, while nodding provides encouragement and signals agreement. Avoid excessive nodding, which can appear nervous or overeager. Lower body. Even seated, your lower body communicates. Feet pointed towards someone signal interest, while pointing away may indicate discomfort or a desire to end the conversation. Avoid fidgeting or bouncing legs, which convey nervousness or impatience. Exercise. Mirror practice. This foundational exercise develops awareness and control of your nonverbal communication. Stand in front of a full-length mirror, deliver a short presentation, or practice responses to common questions. Observe your natural posture, gestures, and facial expressions. Experiment with different nonverbal elements and note how they change your appearance. Practice until comfortable nonverbal cues become habitual. Chris recommends recording this exercise occasionally to catch elements you might miss in the mirror. Elena, a talented software developer who rarely received recognition in meetings, discovered through mirror practice that her habitual posture, arms crossed, shoulders hunched, eyes down, made her appear unconfident despite her verbal contributions. After 4 weeks of daily mirror practice, her transformed body language led colleagues to perceive her ideas more positively, resulting in a leadership role on a key project. Facial expressions and eye contact. Your face is your most expressive communication tool. Eye contact. Appropriate eye contact is one of the most powerful ways to signal engagement and build connection. In Western cultures, maintaining eye contact for about 60 to 70% of a conversation strikes the right balance between connection and comfort. Shift your gaze naturally to avoid staring or appearing intimidating. Facial expressions. Your face communicates emotions that words often cannot. Practice awareness of your expressions, particularly when receiving information or in challenging conversations. The alignment between your facial expression and your words creates authenticity. A mismatch creates distrust. Smile appropriately. A genuine smile builds rapport and signals openness, but smiling during serious or difficult conversations can appear insincere or dismissive. Match your expression to the emotional tone of the interaction. Success story. The job interview transformation. Thomas, a highly qualified IT professional, had been to 15 job interviews without receiving a single offer. After working with Chris, he discovered that his nonverbal communication was undermining his qualifications. His minimal eye contact, nervous fidgeting, and rigid posture conveyed insecurity despite his articulate verbal responses. Chris worked with Thomas on specific nonverbal techniques, including making deliberate eye contact during key points of his answers, using open hand gestures to emphasize his expertise, adjusting his posture to project confidence, practicing a natural smile when introducing himself. Thomas implemented these changes at his next interview while maintaining the same verbal content as in previous interviews. He received a job offer the next day, with the interviewer specifically mentioning his confident presence as a deciding factor. Reading and responding to others' nonverbal cues. Effective communicators not only manage their own nonverbal signals but also accurately read others. Baseline behavior. Establish a person's typical behavior patterns before drawing conclusions from changes. Some people naturally use more animated gestures or less eye contact. Clusters of signals. Look for multiple nonverbal cues pointing to the same conclusion rather than focusing on isolated behaviors. For example, crossed arms alone might simply mean someone is cold, but combined with leaning away and minimal eye contact, likely indicates discomfort with the topic. Congruence. Checking. Notice when someone's words and body language don't align. Phrases like, "I'm fine with that," accompanied by a tense jaw or tight smile, often signal unspoken concerns that merit exploration. Cultural differences. Be aware that nonverbal cues vary significantly across cultures. Eye contact, personal space, touch, and gestures can have different meanings and appropriate levels depending on cultural context. Exercise. The action story. This engaging exercise develops coordination between verbal and nonverbal communication. Create a short story filled with actions. I stretched, grabbed my coffee, checked my watch. Tell the story while physically performing all the actions mentioned. Focus on making the movements natural and synchronized with your words. Increase the complexity of movements as you become more comfortable. This exercise helps integrate your physical movements with your verbal message, creating more natural nonverbal communication during presentations. Jason, a technical trainer whose presentations were described as robotic, practiced action stories daily for a month. This exercise helped him develop a more natural presentation style that incorporated purposeful movement and gestures, resulting in significantly higher engagement scores on his training evaluations. Voice qualities. Beyond words, your vocal elements apart from word choice significantly impact how messages are received. Tone of voice. Your vocal tone conveys emotion and can completely change your message's meaning. The same words, "That's interesting," can be sincere, sarcastic, dismissive, or excited depending on tone. Volume. Speaking volume should match the setting and content. Too soft can signal insecurity, while too loud may be perceived as aggressive or domineering. Pace. Speaking rate affects comprehension and perceived emotion. Slowing down for important points increases retention, while speeding up can signal excitement or nervousness. Vocal variety. Monotone delivery, regardless of content, is perceived as boring and disengaged. Practice varying your pitch, pace, and volume to emphasize key points and maintain engagement. Exercise. Controlled breathing. This foundational exercise improves voice quality and reduces nervousness. Practice deep diaphragmatic breathing. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, and exhale through your mouth for 6 counts. Place one hand on your abdomen to ensure it rises during inhalation. Practice projecting your voice while maintaining this breathing pattern. Incorporate this breathing technique before and during presentations. Chris emphasizes that controlled breathing will help you manage anxiety, project your voice, and maintain a steady pace so that your words will be heard. Sophia, a finance director who spoke too quickly when nervous, practiced controlled breathing before board presentations. This technique helped her maintain a measured pace and project her voice more effectively, dramatically improving clarity and impact. Aligning verbal and nonverbal communication to maximize effectiveness. Ensure consistency between your words and nonverbal signals. Practice authenticity. The most powerful nonverbal communication comes from genuine emotion rather than performance. When you believe in your message, appropriate nonverbal cues follow naturally. Seek feedback. Ask trusted colleagues about your nonverbal patterns, as we're often unaware of our own habits like fidgeting or lack of eye contact. Video review. Recording yourself during presentations provides valuable insights into your nonverbal patterns. Watch with the sound off first to focus exclusively on visual cues. Mindfulness practice. Regular mindfulness meditation increases your awareness of your body and emotions, improving your ability to monitor and adjust nonverbal signals. Practical nonverbal exercise. For your next 3 important conversations, set an intention for your physical presence before beginning. Notice your default posture and adjust as needed during the conversation. Observe the other person's nonverbal cues and mentally note when they shift after the conversation. Reflect on moments when your nonverbal and verbal messages were most and least aligned. By mastering nonverbal communication, you ensure that every aspect of your presence reinforces your message. In our next chapter, we'll explore how emotional intelligence creates the foundation for truly connecting with others in your communications. Chapter 5. Developing Emotional Intelligence for Better Communication. Welcome to Chapter 5, where we explore the critical role of emotional intelligence in effective communication. Technical skills may help you convey information, but emotional intelligence is what allows you to connect with others in meaningful ways. Understanding emotional intelligence, EI, forms the foundation of all effective communication. It encompasses your ability to recognize and manage your own emotions while understanding and influencing the emotions of others. Communication is inherently emotional. Every message contains both content and feeling. When we ignore the emotional dimension, we miss crucial information and opportunities to connect. The 4 pillars of emotional intelligence in communication: self-awareness. Before you can communicate effectively with others, you must understand your own emotional landscape. Recognize your emotional triggers and patterns. Identify how your emotions affect your communication style. Notice when your emotions are influencing your message. Understand your communication strengths and weaknesses. If you're aware of your own emotions and the behaviors they trigger, you can begin to manage these emotions and behaviors. This awareness allows you to communicate more intentionally rather than reactively. Self-regulation. Managing your emotions during communication is essential for clarity and effectiveness. Control emotional reactions that might derail important conversations. Maintain composure when facing criticism or disagreement. Choose appropriate timing for difficult messages. Adjust your communication style based on the situation. Self-regulation doesn't mean suppressing emotions but channeling them productively. It's about responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Empathy. Understanding others' perspectives and feelings is perhaps the most crucial aspect of emotional intelligence in communication. Listen for emotional undertones in others' messages. Consider their perspective before formulating your response. Validate others' feelings even when you disagree with their position. Adjust your approach based on others' emotional states. Empathizing with an employee can, for example, make a difficult conversation easier. You may still have to deliver bad news, but listening to their perspective and showing that you understand their feelings can go a long way. Social skills. The practical application of emotional intelligence in various communication contexts. Build rapport through appropriate emotional connection. Navigate conflicts constructively. Motivate and inspire others through your communications. Create psychological safety in conversations. Exercise 1 lie and 2 truths. This engaging exercise develops emotional awareness and authenticity. Prepare 3 statements about yourself, 2 true and 1 false. Present all 3 statements to others as if they were all true. Allow others to guess which statement is false. Pay attention to your own emotional cues when telling the truth versus lying. Observe others' ability to detect authenticity versus deception. This exercise heightens awareness of the subtle emotional signals we send when being authentic versus inauthentic, improving both self-awareness and empathy. Victoria, a sales manager who struggled with appearing genuine during client interactions, discovered through this exercise that her pitch changed slightly when making inauthentic statements. By becoming aware of this pattern, she developed a more consistently authentic communication style that significantly improved client trust and sales outcomes. Success story: the executive transformation. Robert, a brilliant CFO with outstanding technical skills, was nearly passed over for CEO because board members questioned his people skills. His communications were accurate but delivered with little regard for emotional impact, often leaving team members feeling unheard and undervalued. After working with Chris on emotional intelligence, Robert learned to begin difficult conversations by acknowledging others' potential feelings. Listen for emotional undertones beyond factual content. Adapt his direct style when sensing defensive reactions. Validate others' perspectives before presenting alternative views. 6 months later, Robert's communication transformation convinced the board to appoint him CEO. His team reported feeling truly heard for the first time, and employee engagement scores increased by 34% under his leadership. Emotional connection in communication. Effective communicators understand that connecting emotionally increases engagement and retention. Authenticity: when your emotions align with your message, your communication gains power and credibility. Authenticity creates trust, the foundation for meaningful exchange. Vulnerability: appropriate sharing of your own experiences and challenges can create connection. This doesn't mean oversharing but rather showing your humanity in professional contexts. Emotional mirroring: subtly matching the emotional tone of the other person, when appropriate, builds rapport. If someone is enthusiastic, showing similar energy acknowledges their excitement. Emotional validation: acknowledging others' feelings before addressing content shows respect and builds trust. Phrases like, "I understand why that would be frustrating," create space for productive dialogue. Exercise: Super Spies. This creative exercise from Chris's workshops develops emotional expressiveness and storytelling. Select an ordinary object in the room. Create an engaging 1 to 2 minute story about how you used this object to solve a problem or overcome a challenge. Incorporate appropriate emotional elements. Excitement, suspense, satisfaction. Focus on expressive delivery that matches the emotional content. This exercise helps develop the ability to infuse emotional engagement into otherwise ordinary topics. A valuable skill for making presentations memorable. Carlos, an IT security specialist whose important cybersecurity trainings were consistently rated as boring, transformed his approach after practicing this exercise. By recasting security protocols as spy missions with emotionally engaging narratives, participation in his training programs increased dramatically, along with implementation of security measures. Using DISC to anticipate emotions and communication styles. The DISC personality framework can help you anticipate and adapt to different communication preferences. Dominant D. Communicators value directness and results. Prefer brief, straightforward communication. May seem impatient with details or emotions. Respond well to confidence and clarity. Influential I. Communicators value enthusiasm and relationships. Prefer animated, engaging communication. May share personal stories and digressions. Respond well to warmth and recognition. Steady S. Communicators value harmony and stability. Prefer thoughtful, measured communication. May need time to process before responding. Respond well to sincerity and patience. Conscientious C. Communicators value accuracy and analysis. Prefer detailed, precise communication. May ask many questions to clarify. Respond well to facts and logical structure. By identifying others' preferred styles, you can adapt your approach while remaining authentic. Exercise. Emotional communication journal. This reflective practice builds self-awareness and emotional regulation. After important conversations, record your emotional state before, during, and after any emotional triggers you experienced. How your emotions affected your communication. How the other person's emotions shifted during the conversation. What you might adjust next time. Review your journal weekly to identify patterns and growth opportunities. Chris recommends this practice especially for high-stakes conversations as it accelerates emotional intelligence development through structured reflection. Priya, a human resources director handling sensitive employee issues, maintained this journal for 3 months. She identified specific emotional triggers that caused her to become defensive, developed strategies to manage these reactions, and significantly improved her effectiveness in conflict resolution. Managing difficult emotions in communication. Even with strong emotional intelligence, challenging situations arise. When you're upset, acknowledge your emotion. Internally consider whether now is the appropriate time to communicate clearly. Distinguish facts from feelings. Own your emotions with I. Statements. Focus on solutions rather than blame. When others are upset, allow them to express their emotions without interruption. Validate their feelings. I can see this is important to you. Ask questions to understand the underlying concern. Find points of agreement before addressing differences. Suggest a brief break if emotions are too intense to continue productively. Breaking bad news. Prepare thoroughly and choose appropriate timing. Be direct but compassionate. Provide context and reasoning. Listen actively to responses. Offer support or next steps where possible. Practical emotional intelligence exercise. For 1 week, keep an emotional communication journal. After important interactions, note your emotional state before, during, and after. Identify what triggered any strong emotions. Record how you handled the emotional dimension. Note how the other person's emotions seem to shift during the conversation. Consider how you might enhance the emotional connection next time. By developing emotional intelligence, you transform communication from mere information exchange to meaningful connection. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to adapt your approach across different communication channels and contexts. Chapter 6. Mastering different communication channels. Welcome to Chapter 6, where we explore how to adapt your communication skills across various channels, from face-to-face interactions to digital platforms. Each medium has unique advantages and limitations that affect how your message is received. Choosing the right channel for your message. The first step in effective communication is selecting the appropriate medium. Consider these factors. Message complexity and sensitivity. More complex or sensitive messages typically benefit from richer media with more communication cues. A project cancellation, for instance, deserves an in-person conversation rather than an email. Urgency and timing. Time-sensitive information may require immediate channels like phone calls or instant messages, while less urgent matters can be handled through email or scheduled meetings. Need for documentation. Some communications benefit from a permanent record that can be referenced later, making written formats advantageous. Relationship context. The nature and history of your relationship with the recipient should influence your channel choice. New relationships often benefit from richer media to establish connection. Recipient preferences. Some people strongly prefer certain communication channels. When possible, respect these preferences to improve reception. Exercise. Channel selection matrix. This practical exercise from Chris's workshops helps develop strategic channel selection. Create a matrix with your common communication scenarios along one axis and available channels along the other for each scenario. Channel combination. Rate effectiveness from 1 to 5 based on information richness, needed speed/urgency requirements, documentation needs, relationship factors, recipient preferences. Use this matrix as a quick reference when deciding how to communicate. Ahmed, a project manager juggling multiple global teams, created this matrix for his common scenarios. He discovered he was overusing email for situations that required richer interaction, leading him to implement regular video check-ins that significantly improved team cohesion and problem-solving. Face-to-face communication. The gold standard in-person communication provides the richest exchange of information. Benefits of face-to-face interaction: allows for complete nonverbal communication, provides immediate feedback and clarification, creates a stronger emotional connection, reduces misunderstandings through contextual cues, demonstrates investment and respect for important matters. When it comes to conveying important messages, face-to-face communication adds multiple layers of depth. Facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice provide real-time feedback that's invaluable for ensuring your message is understood. Maximizing face-to-face effectiveness. Choose appropriate settings with minimal distractions. Consider seating arrangements that support your purpose. Maintain appropriate eye contact to build connection. Use natural gestures to enhance your message. Pay attention to timing and pacing based on the other person's responses. Follow up with written confirmation for complex or detailed information. Success story. From conflict to collaboration. A manufacturing company struggled with persistent conflicts between their design and production departments, despite numerous email exchanges and formal documentation. Chris advised the department heads to implement weekly face-to-face meetings in a neutral space rather than continuing their primarily email-based communication. The results were dramatic. Issues that had remained unresolved for months were cleared up in the first 2 meetings. Team members reported that seeing facial expressions and body language helped them understand the constraints and challenges each department faced, creating empathy that had been impossible to develop through emails. Within 3 months, cross-departmental collaboration had transformed, leading to a 15% reduction in production problems. Virtual video communication. Video calls have become essential in modern communication, creating a middle ground between in-person and audio-only interaction. Making video calls effective. Test technology before important conversations. Create a professional environment and appearance. Position your camera at eye level for better connection. Look at the camera, not the screen. When speaking, use more deliberate pauses to accommodate potential lag. Be more explicit about turn-taking than in person. Incorporate visual aids when appropriate for complex topics. Overcoming video call limitations. Acknowledge the medium's constraints. Openly check for understanding more frequently than in person. Compensate for reduced nonverbal cues with clearer verbal signaling. Use chat features to share links or clarify spelling of names/terms. Consider recording important sessions, with permission, for reference. Exercise. Make a commercial. This engaging exercise develops skills for visual communication. Channels. Select an everyday object from your home. Create a 60-second video commercial highlighting its benefits. Focus on clear, concise verbal delivery combined with effective visual presentation. Review your recording to identify strengths and opportunities for improvement in on-camera presence. This exercise helps develop comfort and effectiveness on video, a critical skill for virtual meetings and presentations. Isabella, a financial advisor who needed to transition her client meetings to video during the pandemic, practiced by creating product commercials for household items. This playful practice helped her develop a more engaging on-camera presence, leading to better client retention during the transition to virtual meetings. Telephone and voice-only communication. Audio-only channels eliminate visual cues but maintain vocal elements. Strengthening voice-only communication. Speak slightly more slowly and clearly than in person. Use more explicit verbal acknowledgments. I see, I understand. Describe relevant visual information you would normally show. Identify yourself clearly when initiating calls. Summarize key points at logical intervals. Create mental images through descriptive language. Effective voicemail practices. State your name, purpose, and contact information clearly. Keep messages under 30 seconds when possible. Specify any needed action and timeframes. Speak slightly more slowly than in conversation. End with clear next steps. Exercise. Storytelling using pictures. This exercise develops descriptive language skills essential for audio-only communication. Select an image with multiple elements or a complex scene. Describe it to someone who cannot see it, with the goal of helping them visualize it accurately. Have them draw what they visualize based solely on your description. Compare their drawing to the original image to identify communication gaps. Refine your descriptive technique based on the results. This exercise dramatically improves your ability to create mental images through words, a vital skill for phone conversations and audio presentations. Marcus, a sales representative who conducted most business by phone, struggled to describe products effectively. After practicing this exercise weekly for a month, his ability to create vivid verbal descriptions improved significantly, resulting in a 23% increase in phone-based sales conversions. Written communication. Email and messaging. Written communication creates a permanent record but loses vocal and visual elements. Email best practices. Craft clear, specific subject lines. Begin with the most important information. Use concise paragraphs and bullet points for readability. Clearly state any requested actions and deadlines. Proofread carefully before sending. Consider tone carefully, as readers may interpret more negatively than intended. Instant messaging. Effectiveness. Respect urgency. Expectations of the platform. Use status indicators to signal availability. Break longer messages into multiple shorter ones for readability. Use emojis judiciously to convey tone in appropriate contexts. Be mindful of notification fatigue when sending multiple messages. Remember that written messages lack tone and may be misinterpreted. Check your message before you hit send. Spell and grammar checkers are lifesavers, but they are not foolproof. Double-check what you have written to make sure that your words are communicating the intended message. The cooperation game. This exercise develops flexibility across different communication contexts. Create a specific ending phrase. And that's when I discovered the importance of listening. Challenge yourself to tell completely different stories in different contexts, all ending with the identical phrase. Practice adapting the same core message for different channels. As a formal email, as an instant message, as a phone conversation, as an in-person presentation. This exercise develops adaptability while maintaining message consistency across channels. Olivia, a marketing director responsible for multi-channel communications, used this exercise to develop consistent brand messaging across different platforms. By practicing endings that incorporated key brand messages, her team created more cohesive campaigns that maintained core messages while adapting appropriately to each channel. Documentation and formal written communication. Some situations require more formal documentation. Reports and formal documents create logical organization with clear headings. Include an executive summary for longer documents. Use consistent formatting for readability. Define technical terms and avoid unnecessary jargon. Consider the document's life cycle and future readers' instructions and processes. Test directions by having someone follow them literally. Use numbered steps for sequences. Include visuals when helpful. Anticipate questions and provide answers right at the appropriate technical level for your audience. Cross-channel communication strategies. Often, effective communication involves multiple channels. Channel integration. Follow up verbal discussions with written summaries. Prepare for meetings with agenda distribution. Use multiple channels for important messages to ensure reception. Consider cultural and generational preferences in channel selection. Documentation habits. Write things down. Take notes while you are talking to another person or when you are in a meeting, and do not rely on your memory. Send a follow-up email to make sure that you understand what was being said during the conversation. Success story. The multi-channel master Maria, a project coordinator for an international nonprofit, struggled with managing communications across multiple countries, time zones, and cultural contexts. Working with Chris, she developed a strategic approach to channel selection. For each communication need, she asked, what level of information richness is required? What documentation needs exist? What cultural preferences should be considered? What technical limitations might affect reception? By matching channels to specific needs rather than defaulting to email for everything, Maria dramatically improved project coordination. She implemented weekly video meetings for relationship building and complex discussions, a shared digital workspace for documentation and asynchronous updates, voice messages for quick updates with emotional content, text messages only for urgent matters. Team satisfaction improved significantly, and project timelines were reduced by 20% through more efficient communication. Practical multi-channel exercise. For an important upcoming communication, list all available channels: in-person, video, phone, email, etc. Evaluate each against criteria: message complexity, urgency, documentation needs, relationship context, and recipient preferences. Choose the primary channel based on this analysis. Identify any supplementary channels needed. Follow-up email after a meeting. Adapt your message specifically for the chosen channels. By mastering different communication channels, you ensure your message reaches its audience effectively, regardless of the medium. In our final chapter, we'll explore advanced communication techniques that bring together all the skills we've covered. Chapter 7. Advanced Communication Strategies and Continuous Improvement. Welcome to our final chapter, where we'll explore advanced communication strategies that integrate all the skills we've discussed. We'll also examine how to continuously improve your communication abilities throughout your career. Persuasive communication techniques. Moving beyond basic information sharing to influence others requires additional skills. The elements of persuasion: ethos, establishing your credibility and trustworthiness; pathos, creating emotional connection and relevance; logos, providing logical reasoning and evidence; kairos, timing your message for maximum receptivity; storytelling. As persuasion stories create emotional connection and memorability. Effective persuasive stories include relatable characters or situations; clear conflict or challenge resolution that reinforces your point; authentic personal experiences when appropriate; sensory details that create vivid mental images; framing techniques, how you frame information dramatically impacts reception. Frame benefits in terms of audience values. Consider loss versus gain framing. People often respond more strongly to potential losses. Use metaphors and analogies to connect new ideas to familiar concepts. Acknowledge opposing viewpoints before presenting alternatives. Exercise. Constructing meaning with balderdash. This creative exercise develops agility in explaining unfamiliar concepts. Create or identify unusual, obscure, or made-up terms for each term. Create a convincing definition and use it properly in a sentence. Focus on sounding authoritative and clear. Even when working with nonsense, have listeners guess whether your definitions are accurate. This exercise builds confidence in explaining complex concepts clearly and authoritatively, a valuable skill for leaders and experts in any field. Dr. Patel, a physician struggling to explain medical conditions to patients without medical backgrounds, practiced this exercise weekly. By developing the ability to define unfamiliar terms clearly and confidently, he significantly improved patient understanding and compliance with treatment plans. Success story. From technical expert to inspiring leader. When Sarah became CTO of a growing tech company, she had impeccable technical credentials but struggled to inspire her team. Her communications were factually accurate but failed to create excitement about the company's vision. Working with Chris, Sarah developed her storytelling abilities. She learned to frame technical challenges as heroic quests and connect technical decisions to meaningful impact. She began incorporating customer stories into her presentations and using metaphors to make complex technical concepts accessible. Within 6 months, employee surveys showed a 47% increase in understanding of and excitement about the company's technical direction. Sarah's improved communication abilities allowed her to unite her team around a compelling technical vision, accelerating product development and improving retention of key technical talent. Navigating difficult conversations. Some communication situations require specialized approaches. Giving constructive feedback. Be specific about behaviors rather than making character judgments. Balance areas for improvement with recognition of strengths. Focus on future improvement rather than past mistakes. Prepare examples that illustrate your points. Follow up with support for implementation. Managing conflict. Separate people from problems. Focus on interests rather than positions. Generate multiple options before deciding. Use objective criteria when possible. Acknowledge emotions while focusing on solutions. Having crucial conversations when stakes are high and opinions differ. Establish mutual purpose before addressing issues. Create psychological safety through verbal and nonverbal cues. Share your path of reasoning rather than just conclusions. Invite others to share their perspectives fully. Look for areas of agreement as foundations for solutions. Exercise. Continuous story. This collaborative exercise develops adaptability and attentive listening. In a group, one person begins telling a story for 30 to 60 seconds. The next person must continue the story seamlessly. This continues until everyone has contributed. Focus on listening carefully and building upon others' contributions. Work to create a coherent narrative despite multiple contributors. Chris emphasizes that this exercise helps people engage in listening and learn to be creative enough to make the story continue on and make sense. This exercise is particularly valuable for teams that need to collaborate effectively, as it builds both listening skills and the ability to build constructively on others' ideas. A marketing team that struggled with fragmented campaigns used this exercise weekly for a month. The practice of building coherently on others' ideas transferred to their campaign development process, resulting in more integrated marketing initiatives with consistent messaging across channels. Cultural intelligence and communication. As workplaces become increasingly global, Cultural awareness in communication is essential. High versus low context cultures. High context cultures rely heavily on implicit understanding, relationships, and nonverbal cues. Low context cultures value explicit, specific verbal communication. Adapt your level of directness and detail accordingly. Communication style variations. Linear versus circular reasoning patterns. Different comfort levels with silence. Varying norms for interruption and turn-taking. Different approaches to disagreement and feedback. Building cross-cultural communication skills. Research specific cultural norms before important interactions. Ask respectful questions about preferences. Observe patterns and adjust your approach. Avoid assumptions based on stereotypes. Be explicit about your intentions. When uncertainty exists. Exercise. Origin story. This creative exercise develops narrative flexibility in diverse contexts. Select an everyday object, a stapler, water bottle, or pen. Create an engaging origin story for this object appropriate for different cultural contexts. Practice adjusting the same core narrative for different audiences. More relationship-focused for high-context cultures. More detail-oriented for low-context cultures. More hierarchical or more egalitarian depending on the audience. This exercise builds the ability to maintain core messages while adapting presentation for different cultural contexts. Way, a product manager working with teams across Asia, Europe, and North America, used this exercise to develop more culturally adaptive presentation skills. By practicing telling the same product story with different cultural emphases, he improved reception of product launches across global markets. Communication as leadership. Advanced communicators recognize how their messaging shapes organizational culture. Vision communication. Create clear, compelling images of future possibilities. Connect organizational goals to personal meaning. Use concrete language that creates mental pictures. Repeat core messages consistently across channels. Embody the values you communicate through actions. Transparency and trust building. Share the why behind decisions. Acknowledge uncertainties and limitations. Communicate both successes and challenges honestly. Follow through on commitments made in communications. Create two-way channels for feedback and questions. Coaching communication. Ask powerful questions that promote self-discovery. Listen for underlying potential rather than just current issues. Provide specific, timely feedback on communication effectiveness. Model the communication behaviors you wish to see in others. Create safe spaces for communication practice and growth. Continuous improvement of communication skills. Communication mastery is an ongoing journey rather than a destination. Regular self-assessment. Learning to be a better communicator is an ongoing process, and it's a good idea to evaluate your own performance regularly. Ask yourself if you could have been clearer, whether you asked the right questions, and how well you engaged your audience. Structured feedback systems. In addition to reviewing your own performance as a communicator, you can always ask others what they think. Ask them how well you perform as a communicator, what they think you do well, and what could be improved. Recording and review. Regularly record important presentations or meetings with permission, and review them with these questions. Did I accomplish my communication objectives? Was my message clear and well structured? How effective were my verbal and nonverbal elements? Did I demonstrate emotional intelligence? How could I improve next time? Success story. Chris's personal journey. Chris Aniche often shares his own journey as inspiration for others. From a child with a speech impediment whom teachers dismissed as having no future ambition, Chris transformed himself into an international public speaking champion and distinguished Toastmaster. His path wasn't easy or quick. He began by reading aloud daily, gradually building confidence in private before attempting public speaking. He joined a local Toastmasters club, where he initially struggled so much with anxiety that he would forget his prepared speeches entirely. Rather than giving up, Chris created a systematic approach to improving. He broke down communication into manageable components and practiced each separately before combining them. He videotaped his practice sessions and analyzed his performance to identify specific improvement areas. The structure and discipline of this approach eventually led Chris to create his 7-step fearless public speaking system, which has since helped thousands overcome their communication challenges. His journey demonstrates that communication excellence isn't innate talent but rather the result of deliberate practice, structured improvement, and unwavering persistence. Exercise. Study the experts. This observational exercise develops advanced communication awareness. Identify renowned communicators in various fields. TED Talks, business leaders, political figures. Study their presentations closely, focusing on how they structure their message, their use of storytelling and examples, their vocal and nonverbal techniques, how they create emotional connection, their handling of questions or challenges. Identify specific techniques you can adapt to your own style. Practice incorporating these techniques gradually into your communications. Chris emphasizes that studying effective communicators isn't about mimicry. but about understanding principles that you can adapt to your authentic style. James, a young entrepreneur preparing for investor pitches, studied presentations by successful founders in his industry. By identifying and practicing specific techniques for creating urgency and conveying vision, he secured funding on his first attempt, with investors specifically citing his compelling and clear communication as a deciding factor. Creating your communication development plan to continue improving beyond this course. Assess your current strengths and development areas across all chapters. Prioritize 2 to 3 specific skills to focus on. Immediately create concrete practice opportunities for each skill. Establish feedback mechanisms to gauge improvement. Schedule regular reflection and reassessment. Identify resources and mentors to support continued growth. Practical integration exercise. Create a communication excellence journal. With these sections: communication goals, personal and professional, skills inventory, strengths and development areas, reflection space for communication experiences, feedback received from others, action plans for specific improvement areas, resources for continued learning. Review and update this journal monthly to maintain focus on your communication development. Final reflections as we conclude: remember that becoming an excellent communicator is both an art and a science. The technical aspects, structure, clarity, channel selection, form the foundation, but the artistry comes through practice, authenticity, and genuine connection with others. Chris Anish's journey from a child with a speech impediment to an award-winning speaker demonstrates that communication excellence is achievable regardless of your starting point. With deliberate practice and the right techniques, you can transform your communication abilities and, through them, your personal and professional opportunities. The most masterful communicators understand that their effectiveness ultimately rests on 3 pillars: technical skill in crafting and delivering messages, emotional intelligence in connecting with others, ethical commitment to truthful, respectful communication. By continuously developing in all these areas, you transform not just your own opportunities but also positively impact every relationship and organization you touch. Thank you for joining me on this journey to communication excellence. Remember that each interaction is an opportunity to practice these skills and make a positive difference through effective communication. Please subscribe, like, and share.